a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Latvia. Latvia, officially the Republic of Latvia, is an independent republic in the Baltic region of Northern Europe. Since its independence, Latvia has been referred to as one of the Baltic states. It is bordered by Estonia in the northern region, Lithuania in the southern. To the east is Russia, and Belarus to the southeast, as well as sharing a maritime border with Sweden to the west. Latvia has 1,957,200 inhabitants and a territory of 64,589 square kilometers. The country has a temperate seasonal climate. After centuries of Swedish, Livonian, Polish and Russian rule, a rule mainly executed by the Baltic German aristocracy, the Republic of Latvia was established on the 18th of November 1918 when it broke away and declared independence from Russia in the aftermath of World War I. However, by the 1930s, the country became increasingly autocratic after the coup in 1934, establishing an authoritarian regime under Kārlis Ulmanis. The country's de facto independence was interrupted at the outset of World War II, beginning with Latvia's forcible incorporation into the Soviet Union, followed by the invasion and occupation by Nazi Germany in 1941, and the reoccupation by the Soviets in 1944 to form the Latvian SSR for the next 50 years. The peaceful singing revolution, starting in 1987, called for Baltic emancipation from Soviet rule and condemning the Stalinist regime's illegal takeover. It ended with the declaration on the restoration of independence of the Republic of Latvia on the 4th of May 1990, and restoring de facto independence on the 21st of August 1991. Latvia is a democratic republic and a very highly developed country by United Nations Human Development Index. Its capital Riga served as the European Capital of Culture in 2014. Latvian is the official language. Latvia is a unitary state, divided into 119 administrative divisions, of which 110 are municipalities and 9 are cities. Latvians are the indigenous people of Latvia. Latvian and Lithuanian are the only two surviving Baltic languages. Despite foreign rule from the 13th to 20th centuries, the Latvian nation maintained its identity throughout the generations via the language and musical traditions. As a consequence of centuries of Russian rule and later Soviet occupation, Latvia is home to a large number of ethnic Russians, some of whom have not gained citizenship, leaving them with no citizenship at all. Until World War II, Latvia also had significant minorities of ethnic Germans and Jews. Latvia is historically predominantly Lutheran Protestant, except for the Latgale region in the southeast, which has historically been predominantly Roman Catholic. The Russian population has also brought a significant portion of Eastern Orthodox Christians. It is a member of the European Union, NATO, the Council of Europe, the United Nations, CBSS, the IMF, NB8, NIB, OECD, US, and WTO. For 2014, Latvia was listed 46th on the Human Development Index and as a high-income country on the 1st of July 2014. A full member of the Eurozone, it uses the euro as its currency since the 1st of January 2014, replacing the Latvian lats. Etymology. The name Latvija is derived from the name of the ancient Latgalians, one of 4 Indo-European Baltic tribes, which formed the ethnic core of modern Latvians together with the Finnic Livonians. Henry of Latvia coined the Latinizations of the country's name, Latgalia and Lethia, both derived from the Latgalians. The terms inspired the variations on the country's name in Romance languages from Lithuania, and in several Germanic languages from Letland. History. Around 3000 BC, the Proto-Baltic ancestors of the Latvian people settled on the eastern coast of the Baltic Sea. The Balts established trade routes to Rome and Byzantium, trading local amber for precious metals. By 900 AD, 4 distinct Baltic tribes inhabited Latvia: Huronians, Latgalians, Xylonians, Semigalians, as well as the Livonians speaking a Finnic language. In the 12th century, in the territory of Latvia, there were 14 lands with their rulers: Vanama, Ventava, Bandava, Pime, Duvser, Siklis, Megava, Bilsats, Upmail, Salija, Koknese, Jerzica, Talava, and Adsel. The medieval period. Although the local people had contact with the outside world for centuries, they became more fully integrated into the European socio-political system in the 12th century. The first missionaries, sent by the Pope, sailed up the Daugava River in the late 12th century, seeking convert. The local people, however, did not convert to Christianity as readily as the Church had hoped. German crusaders were sent, or more likely decided to go on their own accord as they were known to do in search of pagans to kill and loot throughout Eastern Europe. Saint Meinhard of Zagerbeck arrived in Ixkiel in 1184, traveling with merchants to Livonia, on a Catholic mission to convert the population from their original pagan beliefs. Pope Celestine III had called for a crusade against pagans in northern Europe in 1193. When peaceful means of conversion failed to produce results, Meinhard plotted to convert Livonians by force of arms. In the beginning of the 13th century, Germans ruled large parts of today's Latvia. Together with southern Estonia, these conquered areas formed the Crusader state that became known as Terra Mariana or Livonia. In 1282, Riga, and later the cities of Cesis, Limbaži, Koknese, and Valmiera, became part of the Hanseatic League. Riga became an important point of east-west trading and formed close cultural links with Western Europe. The Reformation period and Polish-Lithuanian rule. After the Livonian War, Livonia fell under Polish and Lithuanian rule. The southern part of Estonia and the northern part of Latvia were ceded to the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and formed into the Duchy of Livonia. Gotthard Kettler, the last master of the Order of Livonia, formed the Duchy of Courland and Semi-Gallia. Though the duchy was a vassal state to Poland, it retained a considerable degree of autonomy, and experienced a golden age in the 16th century. Latgalia, the easternmost region of Latvia, became a part of the Inflanty voivodeship of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In the 17th and early 18th centuries, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Sweden, and Russia struggled for supremacy in the eastern Baltic. After the Polish-Swedish War, northern Livonia came under Swedish rule. Riga became the capital of Swedish Livonia and the largest city in the entire Swedish Empire. Fighting continued sporadically between Sweden and Poland until the Truce of Altmark in 1629. In Latvia, the Swedish period is generally remembered as positive. Serfdom was eased, a network of schools was established for the peasantry, and the power of the regional barons was diminished. Several important cultural changes occurred during this time. Under Swedish and largely German rule, Western Latvia adopted Lutheranism as its main religion. The ancient tribes of the Curonians, Semi-Gallians, Xilonians, Livs, and Northern Latgalians assimilated to form the Latvian people, speaking one Latvian language. Throughout all the centuries, however, an actual Latvian state had not been established, so the borders and definitions of who exactly fell within that group are largely subjective. Meanwhile, largely isolated from the rest of Latvia, southern Latgalians adopted Catholicism under Polish/Jesuit influence. The native dialect remained distinct, although it acquired many Polish and Russian loanwords. Latvia in the Russian Empire, 1795-1917. The capitulation of Estonia and Livonia in 1710 and the Treaty of Nystad, ending the Great Northern War in 1721, gave Vidzeme to Russia. The Latgale region remained part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth as Inflanty voivodeship until 1772, when it was incorporated into Russia. The Duchy of Courland and Semi-Gallia became an autonomous Russian province in 1795, bringing all of what is now Latvia into the Russian Empire. All three Baltic provinces preserved local laws, German as the local official language in their own parliament, the Landtag. During the Great Northern War, up to 40% of Latvians died from famine and plague. Half the residents of Riga were killed by plague in 1710-1711. The emancipation of the serfs took place in Courland in 1817 and in Vidzeme in 1819. In practice, however, the emancipation was actually advantageous to the landowners and nobility, as it dispossessed peasants of their land without compensation, forcing them to return to work at the estates of their own free will. During the 19th century, the social structure changed dramatically. A class of independent farmers established itself after reforms allowed the peasants to repurchase their land, but many landless peasants remained. There also developed a growing urban proletariat and an increasingly influential Latvian bourgeoisie. The Young Latvian movement laid the groundwork for nationalism from the middle of the century, many of its leaders looking to the Slavophiles for support against the prevailing German-dominated social order. The rise in use of the Latvian language in literature and society became known as the First National Awakening. Russification began in Latgale after the Polish led the January Uprising in 1863. This spread to the rest of what is now Latvia. By the 1880s, the Young Latvians were largely eclipsed by the New Current, a broad leftist social and political movement. In the 1890s, popular discontent exploded in the 1905 Russian Revolution, which took a nationalist character in the Baltic provinces. During these 2 centuries, Latvia experienced economic and construction boom. Ports were expanded, railways built, new factories, banks, and a university were established. Many residential, public, and school buildings were erected. New parks formed, and so on. Riga's boulevards and some streets outside the old town date from this period. Worth mentioning is the fact that numeracy was also higher in the Estonian and Latvian parts of the Russian Empire, which may have been influenced by the Protestant religion of the inhabitants. Declaration of Independence. World War I devastated the territory of what became the state of Latvia and other western parts of the Russian Empire. Demands for self-determination were initially confined to autonomy, until a power vacuum was created by the Russian Revolution in 1917, followed by the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk between Russia and Germany in March 1918, then the Allied armistice with Germany on the 11th of November 1918. On the 18th of November 1918, in Riga, the People's Council of Latvia proclaimed the independence of the new country, with Kārlis Ulmanis becoming the head of the provisional government. The War of Independence that followed was part of a general chaotic period of civil and new border wars in Eastern Europe. By the spring of 1919, there were actually 3 governments: Ulmanis government, the Latvian Soviet government led by Patriarch Stuka, whose forces, supported by the Red Army, occupied almost all of the country, and the Baltic German government of the United Baltic Duchy, headed by Andrievs Niedre and supported by the Baltisch Landswehr and the German Freikorps Unit Iron Division. Estonian and Latvian forces defeated the Germans at the Battle of Wenden in June 1919, and a massive attack by a predominantly German force, the West Russian Volunteer Army, under Pavel Bermontavalov, was repelled in November. Eastern Latvia was cleared of Red Army forces by Latvian and Polish troops in early 1920. A freely elected Constituent Assembly convened on the 1st of May 1920, and adopted a liberal constitution, the Satversme, in February 1922. The constitution was partly suspended by Kārlis Ulmanis after his coup in 1934, but reaffirmed in 1990. Since then, it has been amended, and is still in effect in Latvia today. With most of Latvia's industrial base evacuated to the interior of Russia in 1915, radical land reform was the central political question for the young state. In 1897, 61.2% of the rural population had been landless. By 1936, that percentage had been reduced to 18%. By 1923, the extent of cultivated land surpassed the pre-war level. Innovation and rising productivity led to rapid growth of the economy, but it soon suffered from the effects of the Great Depression. Latvia showed signs of economic recovery, and the electorate had steadily moved toward the center during the parliamentary period. On the 15th of May 1934, Ulmanis staged a bloodless coup, establishing a nationalist dictatorship that lasted until 1940. After 1934, Ulmanis established government corporations to buy up private firms, with the aim of Latvianizing the economy. Brought to you by WikiVidi documentaries. Would you like to know more?